I'm here with Bedros Keuilian, the Breakthrough Podcast. I had a very awesome coaching day here in Chino Hills. He agreed to do a podcast for me, so I'm very excited.
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, you're nervous. He's always the interviewer, not the interviewee. So
this will be fun.
Yeah, so we're called the Breakthrough Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was hoping to get from you was some sort of breakthrough, pivotal time in your life.
Sure.
I know that you have been in the fitness business a long time. You had 3 gyms that you owned way back. From there, you became what I consider the fitness guru about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. 2009, I started following you. You were definitely the fitness guru. From there on to coaching, running masterminds, owning Fit Body Boot Camp along with that. So I know there's a lot of years there. There's been a lot of ups and downs, a lot of good, a lot of bad. But I was hoping you could give one pivotal moment or one thing that you felt you knew something had to change that led you to where you are now.
Yeah, because I think for most people, the journey to greatness isn't a straight, smooth path.
And it's not one moment.
And it's not one moment,
and that's
right?
kind of why I was,
Yeah. And so there's always like detours, there's always potholes, and there's always things that you have to look out for and experience and learn from. So for me, while there was a level of consistent growth, especially as an entrepreneur, I was always one of those people that I felt like I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. I felt like I needed approval and validation. I am a servant by nurture. I want to serve people. And so if we're business partners, I will always outwork you because I don't ever want it to feel like where, man, you're getting the short end of the stick. And so when I had my own, 3 gyms throughout San Diego, well, I was the boss. I'm 100% owner. I built them up to 5 locations and then sold them. Great. And then I went to coaching and consulting personal trainers, gym owners like you, and did really well with that. And then ultimately when I started Fit Body Boot Camp, this international franchise, which when you look at it from the outside now, nearly 700 locations worldwide. Well, okay, check. That's, wow, he's successful. Starting out,
500.
Exactly. Yeah, fastest growing franchise, 5 years in a row for Inc. and Entrepreneur Magazine. Like so much accolades, and all that is great. But you were around, or at least you knew of me back in 2009, 2010 when we started Fit Body Boot Camp. And when I did, I had a business partner in it, and it was the first time I had a business partner in anything. And again, because I'm someone that likes to not let you down, not hurt anyone's feelings. I'll pick up the heavy weight,
right.
As it turns out, my business partner and I weren't kind of seeing eye to eye. And there was a lot of frustration for me, and probably for him too. I probably wasn't the best business partner for him, and I realized that. Maybe in the moment I didn't, but I realize that now. Because I could have communicated my frustrations more. I could have probably asked him to do things better, which I didn't, because I didn't want to offend him, right? Because I was too approval, validation seeking. And so because of that, that where that one time is concerned, if there was ever a one time, my wife and I were in Palm Springs with our kids celebrating her birthday. It was just an hour and a half from here. So it's like, whatever, 50 miles, 60 miles from here. And something happened where my business partner had done something that had really pissed off a lot of our franchisees. And back then we only had like maybe 100 franchisees, but it pissed off like 60, 70 of them, which was pretty bad, especially when you're trying to build a brand. And in that process, I knew that this was going to repeat itself because stuff like this on a smaller level had happened. And I was like, all right, dude, you either have to go and have a talk with him because you resent him so much. You don't want to work with him. I started hating my life. I started gaining weight because I was emotionally eating in that time, to be honest with you. I would complain to my wife, and like a good wife, she would be like, well, do something about it. And I'm like, well, I'm sure he'll change. I'm sure this was an accident. I would justify things for him. And so, but that day, when I got the news from one of our Fit Body Boot Camp franchisees of what had happened, which I don't need to go into great details, but I was like, all right, that's it. It's over. We're parting ways.
That was your moment.
That was my moment. Now, here's the scary part. The justification setting. So while I told my wife, I said, hey, pack up the kids. We're leaving. Sorry, your birthday vacation is being cut short. We have to go home. I need to drop you off. I'm going to text the business partner, tell him to meet me at the corporate store or the office. And we're going to talk through this, and I'm breaking up with him. That's it. He could have the franchise, or I can, but we can't be partners. And in that moment, when you're all fired up, you feel brave, and I could do this, right? As we get in the car, now we're driving for an hour, and the justifications begin. Well, maybe he has a good reason he did that. Maybe the franchisee's misunderstood. Maybe I should give him one more chance. Maybe I should talk to him next week about it. And I was constantly negotiating with my inner weakness instead of really staying on the path to ending this thing. And as I was driving to Chino Hills from Palm Springs, the whole conversation in my head was just man up, dude. Man up and do what you need to do to end this partnership. You resent him. You're passive aggressive towards him. He probably resents you. The wife thinks that you're weak now because you just won't make it. Like all these things are running through my mind. But then it's like, well, I'm sure he had a good reason to. It was just crazy.
Right.
But that was the moment. But I had to man up my way. I literally just pep talking to myself. Man up, you got this. And I remember one time, like, oh, there's a Starbucks. I better pull into the Starbucks. I'm like, no, stay on the path. Don't pull into the Starbucks. So I was looking for excuses to detour.
Can I ask you what you were afraid of? Like, obviously you were.
I was afraid of, and see, here's the deal, right? And I'm an open book. And so my therapist, when I went to him, because I was having anxiety attacks after this whole thing, he goes, an anxiety attack is just anticipation of future pain.
Right.
So I was afraid of when we ended this partnership, what are all the franchisees going to think? Are they going to be like, man, the brand is weak. Maybe I should leave the brand. Maybe we're not going to get more franchisees on board. Just like when you think about two people who want a divorce, they don't get a divorce for years because like, what are the neighbors going to think?
Right.
What are people going to think?
Right.
They'd rather stay in a shitty divorce or marriage
Mm-hmm.
than actually do something about it because of what people think. And so I was anticipating the future pain of franchisees leaving, quitting, thinking I'm a jerk, that he's a jerk, whatever. So none of that happened. That's the thing. That's the scary thing, is none of that happened, and it was all made up in my head, and I was having anxiety and fear because of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about that?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you break it up.
Yeah, and we had this long conversation on the couch in the office. Like, when it was it's not this big place that we have here now. We were paying rent to some, she was a divorce attorney that lent us the corner of her office. And so we're like arguing on a Saturday afternoon, and one of my friends who's an attorney came, and I'm like, dude, you gotta mediate this. And I was like, look, dude, I'm ready to leave, take the whole thing, or you give it to me, but we gotta part ways. And so, of course, there's always ego involved,
Mm-hmm.
and pointing of fingers, because we all bring up old shit. It was literally like a marriage falling apart in front of my own eyes. And I was like, golly, if I had just done this at the first sign 2 years ago, where we had less franchisees, less risk, less financial commitment, I probably would have still been friends with him. Truth is, no one's made me laugh as hard as him. He's a funny dude. I don't know if you remember him. I don't want to mention his name, but he was such a funny guy. No one's ever made me laugh as hard, and I miss him as a friend, and I could have had him as a friend had I manned up and made that decision in the beginning 2 years earlier, when it was still fresh and it wasn't all this yucky stuff built up, right? And I share that with you because how many people watching and listening to your podcast right now know what they need to do, have been kicking the can down the road like I have, afraid of the anxiety that might come or the anticipation of the pain, the future pain, not realizing that what you're anticipating it's never going to be that big.
Right. You
Right.
make it up worse in your mind.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's always worse in our mind than it is in reality.
So where you had that pivotal moment, obviously it came out good on your side.
Sure.
You just decided to build Fit Body Boot Camp and go
All
like
in.
you do, all in for
Yeah.
everything, and led you to success that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And you know, I remember coming home to my wife, I'm like, all right, I think we're getting Fit Body Boot Camp. We do need to buy him out, and it's going to cost us this amount. And she's like, wait a minute, we're buying him out for a business that might fall apart after this whole thing happened? I'm like, oh crap. And I think of that. You're right. We might be giving him money for a business that might not even exist a year from now. But I was like, you know what? We've got work ethic. We'll figure it out. Yeah. I just knew that I'm going to figure it out,
Yeah.
and that it's not going to fail. I didn't know how much I was going to bleed. If you told me how much I was going to have to work to turn that around, because Fit Body did go through some turbulent times, not necessarily because of that, but because I didn't know anything about franchising. That's another big lesson here for everybody. Know your craft.
Right.
Being a gym owner myself, and then being a coach to other gym owners is one thing. Running a franchise where you are responsible for the health, the financial health of your franchisees, and the Federal Trade Commission oversees you, whole other animal.
Because you almost got shut down, right?
The Federal Trade
Yeah.
Commission almost shut us
Yeah.
down. Yeah, could you imagine like all these franchisees who have these brick and mortars looking at me for support in their marketing and their sales, and I'm like, sorry, I'm out of business. And so that was a stressful time because I felt like I was letting almost 100 people down who are running a business. They're financially committed. And so know your craft, become the best. Like these days I study 2 franchises every month, one that's failing, one that's winning, to see what this guy's doing right and what that guy did wrong, so that I can avoid the pitfalls and model success. And I'm a much better leader, but let me tell you, there's still plenty of room for improvement.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So where do you see FitBody going?
So where FitBody's headed now is to 2,000 locations by the year 2025. That's the pace that we're on, and just saying those numbers sounds ridiculous, because if you ever told me that we would hit 500 locations, I would be like, you're out of your mind. But we're well past that now. We've got owners that have 10 locations, 8 locations. We've got owners that have 1 location that's doing $1 million a year. This one particular guy that I mentioned, he's in Daphne, Alabama, Stephen Hadley. He's spoken at Fitness Business Summit. Like, you wouldn't think in Daphne, Alabama, there'd be a FitBody Bootcamp location that's doing $1 million a year by itself. But there is, and it's because we've created better systems. We are onboarding better owners who are more educated on our systems. We're pouring into our owners. But it's become this big brand. And because of that, it's helped grow my name. It's given me access to stages where I could speak from and really help impact lives. Because I'm still a coach, I'm still a trainer. Just now I'm coaching the mind, less the body. Right? The mind, I always say I'm coaching your mental muscles and your financial muscles, not your physical muscles these days. And so it's given me such great opportunity and access and reach. But make no mistake about it, FitBody Bootcamp is a giant animal. Like anyone that runs a franchise, like, do not be envious of them. Like, they are putting in the work. From the outside, it looks amazing, our trajectory and growth. But inside, there is like, I mean, you see, we're in a 15,000 square foot building, and there's like 50 team members just here, never mind remote team members that we have running this brand. So the operational costs are through the roof, but you're building a brand that's going to have years of longevity.
It's amazing. Amazing. And all would not be here if you didn't have that
man up moment.
Vacation and that man up moment. And how many of us have it? And how often do we ignore those moments? We ignore it because, yes, you don't want to go through the pain, and I call it pain, but it's not always pain. You don't want adversity. You don't want to
adversity, the fear.
You don't want to have that conversation, that tough conversation. People don't want to have them.
But there's an uncertainty from that too. It's like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, what if I take it and it fails? What if he takes it and it fails? And now we could have had FitBody owners upset at me, like, why did you let it go? How come you didn't take it? And so you have all these like what if conversations in your head, and then the brain goes, this is too overwhelming, just kick the can down the road. Don't make a decision. And that's what we do. We get indecisive because we get overwhelmed. Run away, bury your head. But I look back, and if I just had done it 2 years sooner, we probably could have parted ways amicably, and I would have still had a friendship with him. And so that's the biggest lesson for me. You also might have been okay and not been as driven, as hard, because you're proving also, correct? You know, so things happen for a reason. Like, would I change the way they happened? No, because I do believe, because of that lesson was so painful, it forced me to never back down on a confrontation or feedback again. And so I think I've moved faster in life because of that. Like, I can literally tell, like, after that conversation, my life and my business and the speed at which I make decisions exponentially grew. And anytime you have any issue come up, handling it right away, growth comes immediately. Which is huge. I mean, I am not a procrastinator anymore. Sometimes to my detriment. Like, we've made some business decisions over the last few years where we moved too quickly on something, and we're like, oh crap, wrong decision, cost us money. But I'd rather do that and then pivot to the right thing than procrastinate and then lose opportunity or gain stress. I think one of the biggest things I've learned being through your mastermind is course correct. Go. You don't need all the information up front. You don't need to know everything. Just go and course correct as you go. Because you will know. But the moment you went down the wrong path, you will know. And you can course correct. But you procrastinate and never make it happen. You'll never know. Exactly right. And you know that. As an entrepreneur, you run locations, you have gyms, you have team members, and all those. Sometimes, and we were just sitting here talking about a team member that you had to make a decision on, and we came up with a solution. But imagine what most people do. They just ignore the problem with their employee or the team member, and it's going to get worse. It's never going to get better on its own. Especially if you ignore it. right?
So those hard conversations have to happen, and the
Must.
outcome will be what it is. You have to realize it always happens for a reason.
And it will always make you better. You never come out like, gosh, I'm a less disciplined, less self-developed person. You always come out as, I now have more self-discipline, I'm better developed, I have more emotional resilience after going through this adversity than after avoiding the
strength,
adversity.
right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But isn't it like, it's so instinctive to want to avoid pain?
It is. I think. What do you think? 90% on how many people run away from pain, avoid it.
98, 99%,
yeah.
right? When you think about it. And it's literally like, if I saw that building across the street burning, I would want to run away from it. Then I think about firefighters who come running towards it and into it.
I would want to go make sure there's no one in there that I need to help.
Right. Okay. All right. So you're much more brave than I am. Thank you.
I don't know if I go in, but I would be worried about
Right?
helping everybody.
Yeah.
More than putting out the fire.
But our instinct is like, hey, I want to be away from the scary thing. Yet, as it turns out, in life, if you run towards a scary thing and solve it, or at least make an attempt to solve it, you will become a better, more resilient, emotionally tougher person, and you love yourself for it.
Yeah. I had an interview, talked with Steve yesterday on the podcast, and we talked about the same type of stuff, but just manning up, but we didn't use your terms. But just talking about facing exactly what you don't want to face and how it makes you a stronger person.
I'm sure Steve probably talked about the, can we cuss on your show? Can we use some?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah,
tell them to
in the project, we have this term, we go, you could either negotiate with your inner bitch, or you can feed your inner beast. And I realized looking back that I did a lot of negotiation with my inner bitch, with the play it safe, don't rock the boat, don't take the risk, don't step on people's toes.
Someone might not like me.
Yes. That is a lot of negotiation with the inner bitch, and no one has ever come out as a champion after negotiating with their inner bitch. We only come out weaker. And so you do have to summon that inner beast, and you do have to push yourself above and beyond limits that you normally aren't comfortable with. And that's, they talk about get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, that's it right there. Like, lean into discomfort, lean into adversity, and you realize, wow, my comfort zone is really growing. And that's what's happened to me in the last 6, 8, 10 years.
That's awesome. Awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Bedros Keuilian, check him out. You didn't plug your project.
Oh, right. Go to the project, Modern Day
Men
Night.
Only.
Yeah. There's a, so you just, I guess, can they follow me on Instagram?
Absolutely.
So follow me on Instagram at Bedros Keuilian. And if you're a guy and you're into emotional violence, on you, not on other people, then
you negotiate with your inner bitch.
Right, and you find yourself negotiating a lot with your inner bitch, you might want to come do the project. Yeah. Thank you.
Check it out. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.